Thank you, Professor Lokenjit Singh, Chair, and uh, respected panelists and friends. I know this is a very emotional moment for people around, and I respect emotions. Emotions are extremely important. We live with emotions, not only by reason. I think reason and passion are integral part of our being, but then we also need to balance that. Let me start with the experience of coming to Manipur, to Imphal. This is my first experience of taking what is called inner line permit. Is that the term for this? So suddenly my friend Noni called me and said that you have to take inner line permit. And I thought, well, within India, if I have to go somewhere, I need a permit. And then permit means that I have to keep it very safe with myself. Anybody can inquire, who are you, from where have you come? So I was little, say, charged about this. Why do I need it? But then I reasoned out. I reasoned out within myself that this is very important. Probably this is one of the techniques of organizing ourselves in a multi-religious, multicultural, multilinguistic, multi-regional society. So many multis are there all around. We have to live together peacefully, and this is one of the innovations, institutional innovations that we have done. So that is wonderful. I like the idea of this permit, and I kept it safe. And I wrote to a friend of mine that, well, I'm really happy that we have innovated something to get rid of the anxiety that the local people might have. Having said that, let me also request you to get the bigger picture whenever you are thinking something. See, mostly what happens when we are in difficult situations, we are in conflict situations, we develop what is called tunnel view. Tunnel view is when you are driving very fast. Then you don't see right and left, you only see straight. So there is a tunnel in which you are moving. So whenever you feel that I'm in a tunnel that I'm moving, in which I'm moving in terms of ideas, the best thing is also to pause and think of a bigger picture. What is happening to the world? Where are we located? Whatever is happening to us, is that also part of the global process? If that is true, then we need to really engage with the global process and see how they are kind of developing techniques of handling it, how they are developing methods of handling it. Let me begin by saying, contextualizing our time, and I call it a little complex thing called ontology of contemporary. Ontology is a very difficult term from philosophy, but don't mind that. That basically means that what is the nature of the reality today in the world in which we are living? Where are we living today? So Manipur is also a part of the larger world in which we are living, called India. And India is part of a larger world in which we are living, called South Asia, probably. Ms. Desai would correct me, or Asia, or then globe, and then humanity. So what's happening to the humanity at the moment? What's happening to human species at the moment? I think if we connect with that, maybe we will get a lot of answers to our own local problems. Give me a couple of minutes, listen it slightly patiently, because it will take you a little far off. That is, that we are passing through a serious crisis. It is not only Manipur is passing through a serious crisis, humanity is passing through a serious crisis. And what is the nature of the crisis? The first and the foremost nature of the crisis is that capitalism is changing its shape, its nature. You know, capitalism started with this idea that there is something called common good. We privatize the property, we privatize the natural resources, but the privatization of natural resources will produce common good. This common good argument within capitalism has been completely given away. Those who have studied philosophy or have studied political science know fairly well that there are very different phases in the history of capitalism when this common good was compromised. Sometimes it was compromised in the name of justice, liberty, equality. Sometimes it was compromised in the name of freedom, that my freedom has to be very absolute. Today we are at a moment when we do not know if capitalism is working for the common good or private interest, only for the private interest. Don't be surprised when I'm saying private interest. Capitalism always works for private interest. But within that private interest, they say that we will create employment, we will create better infrastructure, we'll give you resources to run welfare measures. Today, probably we are heading towards a situation when any form of welfare state is being withdrawn. So, what is the impact of that? The most important impact of that is going to happen to us is there will be huge unemployment. Why so? Because earlier, before this, whenever capitalism faced a crisis, capitalism resolved by giving certain concessions to working class, the labor. Welfareism, some welfare mechanism, some salary, some working hour. This is the first time in the history of humanity when capitalism is trying to solve its problem through technology. Artificial intelligence, robotics, all these things are coming up. And it is being said that even in US, there could be almost 70% of unemployment within next 25 years. So might happen in India. So might happen in any other country. Our condition might be worse than what is happening in US, because what will happen in US is, US will give something called minimum income guarantee. So every family will be given some income so that they can survive. What will happen in India or in any other third world country? We will squeeze our resources from education and health and put that in funding our arms industry, either buying arms and funding arms. And symptoms are very clear. Ukraine war has indicated that war is not over for humanity. It has just started. Worst kind of wars we might see in the future. So what will be the consequence? All the money that is being given for welfare things might be withdrawn. Now what it has to do with our life? Of course, unemployment will be one reason. But it will create a world with small and big struggles. We will have to, I'll explain why it will happen. Let me, before saying that, say one more thing. That we are living in what is called dystopian world. Dystopian world. You know, I conducted a survey of most popular literary texts in contemporary times. It's easy these days, type on the Google, what are the best sold novels in 2023. So I conducted this survey and found that best sold novels are dystopian novels. And one of the authors is a French author, Michel Houellebecq. You must read his novels. There is a novel called Submission or Submission. What is this novel indicating? It says that in France, in 2029, there will be Muslim rule. And then what will happen after that? And you know what is happening in France. Recently, there was huge violence in France. So I was wondering why in every other country this kind of issue is coming up. All over the globe, you will find, go to England, go to US, go to France, Germany, Turkey, anywhere you go, there's a big crisis emerging. The crisis is mutual distrust and some kind of conflict between communities. So why it is happening? Is it happening because suddenly communities have become conscious of their rights or their history or something else? I have a strong feeling, and I can prove this with some evidences, that when there is a crisis of capitalism and capital is not interested in solving that crisis by doling out money to people, then capital will create conflicts among the people. It's a very old strategy of divide and rule. So they can divide and rule. So there is a state-sponsored ethnic conflicts all over the world. If I'm saying state-sponsored, don't treat this as conspiracy theory. It only means that state took birth for this main reason, that it will resolve the conflicts between communities and the people. It will bring law and order and justice to society. So any conflict in any society, it should be considered as a failure of the state to deliver the good which it promised. The fundamental good that a state is supposed to deliver is peace and good working condition. And then second would be all kind of infrastructure and things that you need for livelihood. But the most important thing is right to life. It is the state's duty to provide us right to life. So any conflict in which people are being killed, I think, is a failure of the state. And what is the failure of the state? One, can't the state understand that there is some problem emerging among the communities? Nowadays, as social science researcher, I can tell you very frankly that almost a year in advance or 2 years in advance, you can find out that such and such area is going to experience violence in future. There is a technological world. I remember a very important project done in South Africa and African countries, couple of African countries, where by analyzing big data, that is the data provided by Facebook and social media, they could predict that there could be violence in this area, and the state intervened, resolved the violence. How will you resolve the violence? I'll come to that point. But the point I'm making at the moment is that if today violence happens, there is an inter-community conflict, I would like to consider that as a failure of the modern state. The modern state is actually a techno-authoritarian state. It has huge technology, command of the technology. Each one of us can be located within 5 minutes. Where are we? Within 5 minutes. If your mobile is on, then you are there. They know. What are you buying? Where are you going? Everything is defined. You are just under the surveillance. There is no doubt about it. In that situation, if something of this magnitude happens, then I doubt that a state has not done its duty. And when I'm saying state, that does not mean Manipuri state or Indian state. I'm talking state in general. The state as a manager of society which has to manage society. And this is a global scenario, I guess. Wherever state wanted to control conflict, it has controlled that. Wherever state did not want to control it, it has allowed to happen. When I'm saying this, I'm also warning you. When very nice roads were built in my village, I went to the village. My village was in a remote area and roads were very bad. So I went there with my car and I was very happy when I reached. And every villager came and expressed their happiness that we have now good road. But within 5 minutes, I said, no, wait. It is not matter to be happy. They said, why are you not happy about it? You have always anti-government attitude. I said, no, wait. The problem is the moment there's a good road in some area, I have a doubt that area is already being sold to some capital. All possibilities are there. When big wide roads are entering into area, don't be very happy. Be careful, maybe this area is sold to the capital. Capital today, not only in India, everywhere, is out to control all the natural resources at any cost. It is not even the state. State today is collaborating with the capital. The alliance between the capital and the state is complete. It is not about the government. The political science students know it better. Nobody knows better that there's a difference between government and the state. Government is a manager of the state, and the state is the manager of the capital. So if the state does something wrong, capital will change the state. If government does something wrong, the state will change the government. We have an illusion that it's a democratic space. We change the government. Probably we hardly change the government. Governments are changed by certain other factors. But I don't want to go into that detail. I'm only suggesting that in such a situation of crisis, in such an international context, the conflict is very normal. Either for the reason that we feel insecure, the resources are limited, constantly shrinking, so we feel that we will not get it, and therefore we become alert. We organize ourselves in communities, so we think as a community that our community will lose resources, or there are vested interests wanting to create conflict. There are examples of this kind, that conflicts are created in order to move army in that area so that they can control resources. I'm talking of Jharkhand. There are a number of papers published on this. That army is moved in that area in the pretext of conflict, and then they control everything. So this could be the reason. I'm not saying this is the reason. I'm yet to do solid research to prove the point, but I'm just giving you posers that you should be conscious of this larger context in which we are living today. This is the larger context of our existence. Now, what happens when such kind of conflict happens? Let me talk about the identity a little more in detail. I think that the conflict also creates identity trap or conflict trap in which we enter. What happens in the conflict trap? We start writing history in a particular way. As I was being told that somebody said, my grandfather said this in a book, and the next time somebody write a book, we'll give a proper detailed quotation of the first book. That becomes a reality after 10 times. Then everybody is writing a book saying that this was written in that book. And so many, these days when you write an article, you within bracket, you quote 10 authors. So then you will get to quote 10 authors that they have been saying this. But finally we will reach and discover, my grandfather said this.
The book stops at the table of the author.
Exactly. So you will find that this kind of histories will be written. That is one thing that will happen. Second thing, instead of the history of your cooperation between human beings, you will start defining the struggles more. See, no human society develops by war of civilization or civilizational conflict, what Huntington talks about. Civilizations developed with conflict and with cooperation. Both the things are there. At some moments of history, we only remember conflict. At another moment of history, we may remember cooperation. That is a problem. I think we should remember conflict and cooperation so that we can go beyond conflict. I'm not saying that you forget history. We should never forget history. The communities which forget history are doomed to die. We must remember our history. We must remember our humiliations. We must remember at what point we were lost. But also we must remember that we have to move on with that. And we have to create new histories. We have to create new cooperation. Otherwise, I'll keep looking for some God in every mosque and keep destroying everything. We'll mutually destroy each other finally. So we have to really think of history in a particular way. The conflict trap blurs our vision of history. History becomes only the past, not the future. There's another very interesting point that I want to make, and I think you will appreciate that, is about identity politics. You know, the problem with the left liberals, and I belong to that category actually, unfortunately, is that we have no understanding of identity politics. We generally think that the moment there is an identity politics, it is against democracy. We generally think identity politics is going to damage the nationalist project. Left people are a little more ahead. They think that identity means anti-class, anti-progressive ideas. I think we need to little bit pause and think. There are layers of identities. I'm identifying with you for simple reason that you have also come from Delhi and I have also come from Delhi. Ms. Desai, I'm talking about you. And then we have a talking point, what's happening in Delhi, very normal. Any person from Manipur coming to Delhi, finding another Manipuri friend talking about Manipur and about their language, it's very natural. I call it identity identification. It's a natural process of identification. Actually, we discover our meaning through identity. Otherwise, we become meaningless. The second phase comes when there is identity formation. When we come together and say, look, we are all from Manipur in JNU, let us make a club so that we get to eat something which we ate in Manipur. Nice food. Like the Uriyas would eat dry fish, which smells very bad, therefore they don't have it in the colony, but when they get together, they enjoy eating that. So that is very normal. You make clubs, you make societies. It's called identity consolidation. Please let me know when my time is over. I'll just summarize.
Actually, being a loquacious man by myself, I had to restrict, when anybody makes a presentation, I had to intervene. So please carry on, but only you take care of the...
No, I just let me know my time when time is over. I don't mind.
Please.
Or when you get bored, just raise your hands, I will stop speaking. No problem. So, I think the third phase is identity consolidation. Identity formation and identity consolidation. When we start coming together and thinking, now we are being marginalized, we have to do something about it. We should come together. Let us have the markers. Let us defend our things. Let us make public arguments. I think that is also natural. If I am being marginalized in the name of anything, in the name of language, in the name of my color, in the name of my caste, community, anything, it is very natural for me to defend myself. It's a liberative for me to defend myself. There's no problem with that. But the problem begins when there is an identity conflict, when we want to resolve these things through violence. When we want to enter in politics and we want to create this kind of false ideology, when we create unnecessary contradictions, thinking that we can consolidate our identity. Identity has a very, very big problem. That is, the more you thrash the other, the more you consolidate yourself. So thrashing other, you have to create an enemy in order to consolidate yourself. That is the tragedy of the identity politics. And that is where the problem comes. That is where we need to be very alert that do not create enemy, because once you create the enemy, start consolidating your community, then you will start getting into the violence. There is a possibility of getting into it. So that is where I think somebody was talking in the morning, which nation, what is a nation, how do we define our nation? I think we should also define our identity. If identities are internally undemocratic, then they will be externally also undemocratic. They have to be internally democratic and externally democratic. I give you an example. If you must have watched film Gandhi. Gandhi enters in the scene. All big leaders are sitting. Jinnah, Nehru, everybody is sitting. And they are talking that, oh, there is some man from South Africa who is coming. He's half clad. He's आजकल आधा नंगा रहता है वो आ रहा है अभी आने वाला है. Then he enters, and first thing he discovers that a waiter is carrying a tea pot for serving there, and he takes it from him and says, as long as there is an inequality between us and this person, we will not be able to fight against the British. Our fight against the British depends how egalitarian we are. So therefore, I think identity politics ends there. The moment you become egalitarian inside, you will have a vision for outside also that will be egalitarian. I think that is very important.
Thank you.
I'll just take 2 more minutes.
Okay.
Would you give me
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Exactly 2 minutes. Just 2 more things I want to flush out and then leave it. One is that we must address anxieties of all the communities. That is where the left liberals fail. Left liberals think that if there is a community which is in majority and other is in minority, then all crimes must have been committed by the majority community. I don't believe in this. I think the anxiety of the majority community is as real as the anxiety of the minority community.
Thank you, thank you.
The purpose that we must enter in dialogue to address this anxiety of the communities. I think that is very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very, very brilliant presentation. I congratulate Professor Manindra Nath Thakur